The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. When you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand that most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo, or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? And that woman in the red dress, for those of you who are not familiar, this is from the movie The Matrix. And being on social, I'm sure you see The Matrix coming up a lot. A lot of references, red pill, blue pill. I've done a couple of videos on that as well. But for the sake of this video, I want to share a couple clips that really expose deeper meanings behind this. And there are so many lies in our culture and institutions. The failure, the trust in institutions is basically gone, with the exception of, it's a house of cards. I mean, and I think deep down everybody knows that, but to really face that reality would require tremendous responsibility. And the more responsibility that you take on, the more that it is, to me, this is a deeply Christian idea. How much of the sins of the world essentially do you want to confront? Now, the idea is Christ died for our sins, so we have salvation through him. But the idea is that our we're collectively responsible for our fellow man. And to some extent, on again, there's very, very many paradoxes, so I'll do my best to describe it based on my own understanding. Is that on one level it's true, and on another level it's not true. You're not responsible for how other people are going to respond. You're responsible for your own sovereignty and the way you operate, and you have to take responsibility for your own actions. That being said, at the same time, I believe that our body is made up with billions and billions of cells, right? And if each cell decides, you know what, I'm just going to look out for myself, I don't care about the rest, it the body collectively dies. And I think walking the path of understanding both of those realities are true is what is necessary. And I look at this similar in the idea that Christ always looked for he left the 99 and went for the one. He left the 99 and went for the one. And I think it's the ability to always look for opportunities for people who see through the BS. And at the same time, no, you have to go your own way. You have to become independent before you can become interdependent. And I think those are really the two ideas. We have a society now where there's so much dependence on the system, dependence on just believing information, because to go against that would, in a certain sense, mean death. Right, to be ridiculed, to be mocked, called a conspiracy theorist, and called crazy. Trust the doctors, right? You should challenge everybody. Just because somebody has a label or a title next to their name doesn't make them the arbiters of truth. And at the same time, you shouldn't dismiss information from somebody, because if somebody does have that title, it gives them a certain sense of credibility. So it's not just argue everybody and disagree. And I think finding that middle line is what is the essence of truth. Because in the same way, there is no one person that has all the truth. They're a piece of the puzzle. And in a free society, you should welcome opposing ideas, and at the same time, not get pulled into it with one team or the other, because at the end of the day, we're all on the same team, which is seek the truth. And doing that by letting your own hypocrisy and your own lies die. It's not a pleasant experience. I speak about this a lot with the idea of born again men. To be born again, it's a rebirth. It is painful to have your illusions die. It's painful to say, hey, you know what? There's really corrupt people in this world. Hey, maybe I have corruption within myself. What can I do to shed that? And I've been playing with the idea of the example of going into the military. There's a process of going into the military where there's basic training, and depending on, even Navy SEALs, they go through Hell Week, right? The idea that in that moment, it's in those moments, nobody wants, a lot of people quit, and because you're going into a place where not a lot of people go. And because when you start to see those higher truths, it's scary in a world that denies them. So that's why I love that Matrix quote. But the first video that I want to show here is kind of how the news operates. It's something that I've seen multiple times, and um, I'm sure many of you have seen it, but if you haven't seen it, this is really what the news looks like from another angle.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about trouble and trending irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 So when you see it through that lens, what you can really see is people are just reading off a teleprompter. Just because someone has a suit on and they sound credible and they are, they appear as if they're speaking truth because they sound professional, doesn't mean they're being honest. And I think it's really important to really challenge that. It's a process of being naked. It's a process of saying, I don't know what the truth is. And that's a really scary place, but it's actually the birth of true wisdom. It's often said the idea is fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Well, the fear of God is the fear, I believe, in part, is the fear of the truth. Why would you be afraid of the truth? Because the fear of the truth it's more of a reverence for the truth. And the truth is you don't know the ultimate context. And that's a scary place to be. One of the worst things for a politician or a news anchor to come in and say, this is what I know for a fact, and I don't know the rest. I don't know. I don't know. But humility is so powerful. Humility is such a powerful thing, but what we have is a society that glorifies pride. If I have my suit and tie and I sound, these are the news. This is the news for today. And this, you're getting an angle, and that's, you're getting one piece, one angle. And it's not to dismiss the news too, right? This is the paradox. But when you start to peel back the layers and realizing you're getting people's a very narrow view, and ultimately just shut off the news. This is what you're seeing. So, and where do you get the alternative news from? Well, you get it from going alternative routes. And again, this is where it gets very tricky, because do you just listen to some random person? How do you know who to trust? Well, ultimately, I believe the only people you know how to trust is if you can trust yourself. And how many people trust themselves? Well, we have a society that is denying trust of thyself, and thyself is the true God self within. Again, I believe the media, the corruption, all of the corruption out there is a reflection of the corruption of the people. When the people correct their own corruption, they will have the eyes to see who are the good actors and who are the bad actors, and to keep people accountable. And it starts local. It starts within your own circle, your friends and your family. Ultimately, it starts with yourself, but expanding that outwards. And again, that's a painful process. That's why not a lot of people do. It's easier to point fingers. It's easier to get pulled into the entertainment and the gossip and all the bullshit than to really do the true inner work and have clarity to be able to point it out. Because when you start to challenge ideas, people are going to question, well, what gives you authority? And true authority comes from within. I'm not just saying that poetically. True authority does come from within. It doesn't come from a title. It doesn't come from you having, holding a certain position. If that was the case, then, throughout history, anybody who had a position of authority in any military or any army would automatically be the authority. But that's not the case, because authority is removed and changed throughout time. And I believe that authority is changed through integrity. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. We need more integrity from the people. That includes you. You know, you have to figure out your pathway in order to challenge these ideas and understand that there's really deep, ugly truths, and you don't do it all at once. As the saying goes, you don't eat all the red pills overnight. But to really understand that there are good people and there are evil, and those who, the only people who are going to challenge evil are those who really step up and recognize that evil is not just going to give up control. You know, it has to come from a higher level of being, which comes from a higher level of seeing. The second video clip that I want to show here is from Pfizer. Now, this is just an observation. This is not me saying I'm pro this, I'm anti this. Those of you who know me know my position, and I've articulated in this channel in different videos and in different podcasts. But take a listen to this and think for yourself. Maybe there's some bias. Maybe there's some influence. Maybe there's other motivations than just safety.
America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Brought to you by Pfizer. So the idea is that you have financial motivations built into these news networks. So they're going to, would they be against it? No, they're being sponsored. They're getting paid through it. So whether it be they're they have to say certain things, or they're reading off a teleprompter, this is good. They're pushing a certain narrative. Now, the thing is with this, and I've spoken about this before, I think I play with the idea of the 95-5 rule. So I believe that 90% of the people, we're just getting through, right? We're just, people just going to work and taking care of their responsibilities and, just good, hardworking people. And the 5 is you have 5%. The other 5% are truly evil. They play on the emotions. They divide people, divide and rule. That's how you rule people. And then the other 5 who see through it, and they push against the other 5%. And I think the quote unquote evil, truly evil, actually. It's so hard because I can only go off what I've seen, but I do believe in true evil in the world. The corrupt 5% don't believe in the will of the people, and they actually go against them, and they think people are stupid, I think in part. And the other 5% believe in the will of people, but also recognize that they see themselves in in the people, and they see their own capacity for stupidity. This is where wisdom comes in. It's I think the idea of the spirit of the Father. The spirit of the Father provides good judgment, but also has true compassion for ignorance and people being, which comes through emotional control and deep reflection of realizing that I am my own enemy, and the enemy within is the enemy without. So to fight other people, to fight ignorance, is to perpetuate it. So you have to meet people where they're at, which is the sign of a very good leader. People are at different levels. And if you just come at people as all, you're stupid, I have all the answers, you're fighting yourself, where there's a stronger message can be received if you have the ability to listen, to trust people will get it over time. And that we're tested with that challenge every single day in our country. And I'll end it on this note that this, to me, is one of the biggest things that we can do is to seek the truth. Christ said, Christ says that seek and ye shall find, but it never says in that quote, seek and ye shall find positive news. It's not going to go like that. When you start seeking, you start getting answers. A lot of them are going to be ugly. And to the extent that we avoid truth and avoid questioning narratives, they're going to be more and more uglier. It's like as if there's a cancer in your body and you don't want to pay attention to it, right? It's like, I'd rather focus on the healthy part. And to some extent, that's good, right? I think that's why I say only have a red pill a day. But to the extent that you ignore the problem completely, well, then you're not addressing the problem. And I think the only way that we fix these problems is by going through them. And again, the more that we put it off and act as if there is no problem, the harder the problem will be to solve when each of us has to confront it. And everybody's going to confront it in a different way. The way I confront it is going to be different than the way you confront it. But we all have to navigate this together. It's our body is sick. Our body is sick. If you see what I see, then you would agree our body is sick. Now, how we heal that? Well, you have to find your place in the body. There's a lung cell. There's cells in the lung. There's cells in the heart. There's cells in the feet. There's, different types of cells. The way that you fight, again, is going to be different from those around you. And this is my invitation to you to shut off the news and fight the good fight. Play your part. Find your place in the circle of life. Do it today.